Hello everyone and welcome to Grandstand Sports Data. In today's video, we will be continuing our 13 chapter series on the art of sports betting. We will be educating you on what we call the 13 pillars for turning you from a square to a sharp with similar principles to the book The Art of War. We will be providing action steps through each of the chapters so you can improve your betting approach and get you betting more responsibly. We will also add our final thoughts from the 17 years of experience that we have betting on sports, so let's get right into it. Chapter 6, Sports Betting Obstacles. So, it's not just about strategy, it's going to be about your opponent. And Sun Tzu once said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. In sports betting, your enemy isn't just the sports book, it's also you, your biases, your emotions, your process or system. This chapter is about helping you see both sides of the fight. You'll learn how sports books have an actual advantage over you, but you'll also learn how your own psychology, your own impulses, overreactions, and bad habits can quietly sabotage your results. So the goal here is going to be simple. You want to know your opponent, master yourself, and then prepare yourself to be in the best position to win. So let's get into it. Let's get one thing straight before we go any further. Right off the bat, the sportsbook has real, built in advantages over you. And if you want to win in this game, you need to understand exactly what you're up against. So these are the four advantages that the sportsbook have on you. The first one is going to obviously be the VIG, or the hold, juice, commission, whatever you want to call it. It's every bet you place, you're already behind. So even if you pick 50% winners, you're still going to lose money. To break even on a standard minus 110 spread, you need to win about 52.4% of your bets. And that's before you make a dime. The VIG is how sportsbooks make sure that over time, they profit no matter who wins or loses. Next is going to be models. So you ever wonder why 90% of sports betting models don't win in the long run? Well, it's because you're not just competing against the public. You're competing against sports books that hire full-on data scientists and statisticians from the best universities. They're using complex models to set, adjust, and even perfect the betting lines. Spreads, they're modeled. Totals, modeled. The props, you guessed it, they're modeled. These aren't guys with an Excel sheet. They're teams building algorithmic engines that test millions of simulations to carve out thin margins that favor them over the long run. I need you guys to understand this next sentence, and I need you to understand it loud and clear. The goal to building a sports betting model is to make you as unbiased as possible, not to win sports bets. You guys have to understand that moving forward, and you'll hear that throughout this channel's existence. People kind of get that confused. Number three is going to be access to sharp information. When pros, or also known as sharp bettors, fire off bets, sportsbooks know immediately. They track respected accounts and know their win loss record and then also their return on investment. They know who moves markets, and they adjust lines before you even refresh your odds page. You think you're getting a plus EV line? Meanwhile, the sportsbook is already half a step ahead, shifting their numbers based on income and sharp money. And that brings us here to line movement. Sportsbooks aren't waiting for game day. Odds shift rapidly based on sharp bets, injury news, betting volume, or even public perception. By the time you react, the edge might be gone. A line that opened at minus 2.5 moves to minus 4.5 in a blink of an eye. Total swing 2 or 3 points within hours of sharp action. Every move they make is designed to protect themselves and maximize their advantage. So the bottom line here is before you can think about beating the book, you have to respect the fact that the game is tilted against you from the start. They're not guessing, they're not gambling, they're running a business with precision, data, and razor thin margins stacked in their favor. Let's move on to your side of the battlefield because mastering yourself is just going to be as important as understanding the enemy. All right, we've talked about the sportsbook advantages, but now it's time to talk about the enemy that lives inside your own head. Because how you feel, how you react emotionally, and how stable your mindset is, That's going to matter just as much as picking winners. In fact, your psychology might be the number one thing that destroys or saves your bankroll. So let's walk through some of the biggest mental and emotional obstacles that trip bettors up. Number one is going to be overconfidence. Now, this is when you're trusting hot streaks, trusting your gut, or even the eye test too much. An example would be you go 7-1 over the weekend and start thinking, I don't even need my models anymore. I just know who's going to win. So you start betting bigger, sloppier, and then reality smacks you back to earth. Remember, overconfidence kills discipline, and discipline is what keeps you alive. Number two is going to be chasing losses. This is betting out of desperation to make up for earlier losses. Think about if you lose your early slate bets and then think, I gotta win it all back tonight, no matter what. So you fire off 3 NBA parlays, you didn't even handicap, just hoping for the best. Now you're not betting smart, you're betting emotional, and you're making your situation even worse. Number three is going to be boredom betting. This is when you place bets just because there's nothing else to do. An example is it's Tuesday night, nothing on TV, you don't really love the MAC college football game, but you think, hey, it's action, I'll throw about $50 on it. Well, you're not playing your edge. You're entertaining yourself, and you're paying for that privilege. Next will be familiarity bias. And this is emotional attachment to certain teams, players, or even conferences that you like. Say you grew up as a Cowboys fan, so you keep betting Dallas to cover even when your model says they're overrated. Or you bet on Steph Curry props every night just because you trust him or you like him. Sports betting isn't about loyalty, it's about logic and value. You need to leave your fandom at the door. And last but certainly not least is emotional instability. This is when you're letting panic, anger, hope, or fear take over during wins and losses. Some examples would be if you're panicking after a 2 game losing streak and then you start scraping your whole process. It's not the right thing to do. Or you're getting angry at bad beats and then firing rage bets off in the late window. Not good. Emotion clouds judgment. In this game, your edge is your brain staying clear when everything else is chaos. So, just my final word here on psychology, your enemy isn't just bad picks or bad luck. It's the little voice inside your head telling you to bet bigger after a win, or to fire wild after a loss, or to trust your favorite team over your system. You need to recognize these traps, build emotional discipline, because if you can't control yourself, you'll never control your edge. So let's move on to behavioral obstacles. That's the daily habits that can either build your edge or destroy it. So we've covered your psychology, how you feel, and how emotions can wreck your bankroll. Now let's talk about your behavior, the actions you take day in and day out. Because in the end, success in sports betting comes down to discipline. Do you follow your plan? Or do you fall into habits that quietly bleed your edge away? Let's walk through the most common behavioral and discipline related obstacles that separate sharps from squares. The first one is going to be a lack of structured process. You don't have a betting model, you don't have a plan, you don't have a system, or even a consistent checklist. You're just going out and winging it. An example would be you open your app, you scroll the board, and then all of a sudden you bet 3 games that feel right without doing any research or line shopping. There's no roadmap, there's no structure, and if you're relying on gut feelings, you're not a bettor, you're a gambler. Let's move on to the next one, which is failure to track and review results. You don't log your bets or you don't analyze your long term performance. An example would be you tell yourself, I'm about even, but you've lost about $400 over the past month and you have no idea why. Well, without honest tracking, you can't fix these leaks. You're just hoping things turn around with no plan to make that happen. Next would be you're betting too many games. And this is you spreading yourself across a bunch of plays, most with no real edge. You have 12 bets on an NFL Sunday, you feel great about 3 of them. The rest, well, they were like forced action to stay involved. So when you bet without an edge, you're not just lowering your win rate, you're increasing your risk without increasing your return. Just think of that. Next is going to be neglecting preparation. And this is when you're skipping research and you're betting off of memory, bias, or headlines. An example is you bet the over because both teams score a lot. That's it. But you didn't check the injuries, the pace, nothing. Not the weather. You didn't check anything. So no real research equals no real edge. If you want to win, you got to do the work. And then next is going to be failure to shop lines. You place bets at the first sportsbook you see without checking for better odds. We all know an example of this. You bet a total at about, over 45.5 at minus 110 without realizing that another book has it at the over at 45 at even, so 45, and then at minus 105. That's a 5 cent difference in a half-point edge that you gave away for no reason at all. So line shopping isn't optional. It's how you stay in the game in the long run. And last will be deviating from strategy. So you abandon your system after a losing streak or an emotional swing. Here's like an example. Your model says to take Team A at +3, but after seeing 3 straight losses, you bail and you start fading your own numbers out of fear. Gotta remember, variance happens. Even great bettors lose 10 in a row. If you jump ship after, every downswing, you'll never give your edge time to work. The bottom line here is that your habits shape your outcomes. Are you organized or reckless? Are you following a plan or just winging it? Are you grinding or guessing? Discipline isn't sexy, but it's what separates sharps from squares. Let's talk about the last major set of obstacles. This is going to be your thinking. You can have the tools, the bankroll, the discipline, but if your logic is flawed, your bets are going to be flawed too. Strategic and analytical obstacles are all about how you process information and then make decisions. And unfortunately, most bettors fall into predictable mental traps without even knowing it. Let's walk through some of them here. You can see the first one's going to be recency bias. Definition of this is overvaluing recent games or results. An example would be Team A gets blown out last week, so you fade them hard, ignoring that they were missing key players and had played 3 games in 6 days. One bad week doesn't erase a full season of data. Just remember that. Next is going to be confirmation bias. This is only paying attention to the info that supports your pick. So let's say that you love the Ravens, so you highlight every stat that favors them and ignore the fact that they're 0-6 against the spread versus the opponent's scheme. So you're not researching, you're rooting, and that's dangerous. Next is going to be the gambler's fallacy. The gambler's fallacy is believing outcomes are due. So an example would be the Suns have lost about 4 in a row. They're bound to bounce back tonight. Nope, that's not how probability works. Losing streaks don't owe you a win. Next is going to be availability bias, and this is overvaluing info you've seen recently, especially in the media, I would say. Let's give you an example of a team gets hyped on ESPN all week. So you bet them to cover blindly, not realizing they're the dog by 14 points, but are playing on ESPN. So just because it's talked about doesn't mean it's valuable. The talking heads on these television programs are in the business of entertainment and sales. They are selling their audience to watch the game on their network, even though the numbers show the game may not even be close. Next will be misjudging risk and edge. So this is where poor understanding of edge, probabilities, and expected value come into play. An example would be you bet a 3-leg parlay at plus 600 because it feels like a lock, but your true edge is razor thin and the VIG eats you alive. That plus 600 looks juicy, but if the fair odds should be at about plus 800, you're getting fleeced. Next will be overreacting to small samples. So making conclusions off of about 1 or 2 games, that's really a tiny trend. So think of it like a team has covered 3 straight games in a row, so they're on a heater. No, that's just those 3 games are independent of each other. The long-term data is the only data that matters. Remember that. Next would be ignoring the VIG or juice, not realizing how small differences in odds affect your break-even point. So you keep betting at minus 115 without knowing you need to hit at about 53.49% just to break even there. That's 1% harder than minus 110. And over time, that's going to kill your return on investment. You need to know the math. Next will be ignoring market signals, and this is for my big market bettors. If you're missing sharp movement, key injury updates, or stale lines, so an example would be you bet early and don't monitor the market. Meanwhile, the line moves 2 points due to an injury, and you're now holding a bad number. So the market tells a story, and if you don't listen, you're going to be behind. Next is going to be anchoring bias. This is getting stuck on your early opinion and ignoring new data. You like the under early in the week, so you ignored updated pace stats, injury returns, and even some weather changes. Now, as a smart bettor, these stubborn bettors end up losing. It's because they weren't being patient or they weren't opening themselves up to the other side of the argument. Last will be unrealistic expectation. This is believing you'll win 60% long term or strike gold with every bet, right? You start betting and expect consistent weekly profits, or you think you'll quit your job in a year from sports betting. Even sharp bettors might hit at about 53 to 56% in tough markets. Anything more is elite company and usually not sustainable. So my final thought here is that your edge isn't just in your model. It's in your thinking. It's how you weigh data. It's how you react to the results, how you control your logic. You need to sharpen your mind and the bets will follow. So let's move into the final section, how to overcome all of these hurdles and become the bettor you're meant to be. Okay, let's be honest, sports betting is not easy. If it were, everyone would be rich, right? But the real professionals and the guys who last years in this business, they all have one thing in common. And it's the same thing that can hurdle all of these obstacles that you saw throughout this video. It's building a plan. And this means that you're going to go back to chapter 1 if you haven't already. It walks you through step by step on how to build a real strategy and not just throw darts at a board. So here's going to be the quick recap, right? The first one is going to be develop your research process. You're going to need structure. You're going to need technical analysis, fundamental analysis. And if you're betting in big markets, you're going to need market analysis. I know some of you guys are going to say, well, I'm just a technical handicapper. I like my models and I like my. It doesn't matter. You need some basic knowledge of fundamentals and then vice versa. So if you're a technical guy, you love your models, start with blind spots like injuries. Injuries is a huge blind spots for models. On the fundamental side, implement some power ratings or even just a basic model system to where you can gauge, to make yourself as unbiased as possible, like we've told you throughout. Next is going to be bankroll management, right? This is obvious here. You don't worry about making money until you learn how to not lose it first. Remember our 5% to 15% rule. So no one bet should be more than 5% of your bankroll, and you should never have 15% of your bankroll tied up into one session. Next is going to be only bet with a real edge. So if you can't identify why a line is mispriced, you probably don't have an edge. No more action for the sake of the action. Now, multiple sportsbooks accounts. This is obvious, right? We want you to odd shop. And that's non-negotiable. Remember that 5-cent difference adds up fast. So having access to more lines is going to equal more opportunities. Next, we want you to record keep everything. No exceptions. Your brain is not your data system. You need to track what you bet, why you bet it, and what the outcome was. The more you track, the more you'll refine. Simple as that. And the last one, and most importantly, I think, is you need to accept losing. So let's get serious here, because if you don't learn how to lose, you'll never make it in this game. You're going to lose bets. You're going to get your heart ripped out on a buzzer beater. You'll have a running back fumble with a minute left, a kicker miss from 35 yards, a blown 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. The list goes on and on and on. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can cry about the refs, blame the weather, scream, oh, it's rigged, the game's rigged. Or you can own it, accept it, move forward. Because guess what? Luck and variance are part of the game. You knew that when you placed that bet. Over time, you'll experience it all. Heartbreaking losses, incredible wins, blowouts, upsets, bad luck, good luck. It all evens out. What matters is how you respond. And if you're looking for more help beating those internal battles, like confirmation bias, recency bias, gambler's fallacy, and much more, you can head over to the Edge of the Grandstands playlist that we have on our channel. So we've already covered a number of ways to conquer sports betting bias with real strategies and psychology that works. The bottom line here is you won't defeat the sports book until you first mastered yourself. Okay, so let's wrap this up with some final thoughts here. So you came into this chapter probably looking for strategy, tactics, edges, but what we've really talked about is you. Because before you can ever beat the sports book, you have to master yourself. And the most common question that we get here is, can you even win? So we're not going to sugarcoat this. You can win in sports betting, but very little do. Most people lose. And it's not because they don't know sports, it's because they can't handle variance, they lack discipline, or they fall apart emotionally. They chase, they tilt, they overreact. They believe every hot streak is proof they figured it out, and every cold streak is the universe punishing them. But the truth is, success in this game takes years. Years of work, years of understanding randomness, years of learning to let go of gut feelings and stick to your plan, even when it hurts. And speaking of randomness is always a factor. Look, even great bets lose. You'll do the research, shop the line, follow your model, and still lose on a buzzer beater, or a fumble, a missed free throw, a penalty flag with 8 seconds left. That's not a mistake. That's not bad luck. That's variance. And if you don't accept that, if you chase every streak like it's going to be your last, regression to the mean will humble you, and it will humble you fast. Next, we want to talk about addiction. And addiction is real, right? Sports betting can be fun, it can be thrilling, it can be strategic, but it can also get really dark and really fast because this stuff triggers your brain's reward system. You get a rush from the action, the near wins, the almost had it moments. And if you don't control that habit, it will control you. If you ever feel like this is becoming more than a hobby, if you're betting money you can't afford, if you're chasing bets with rent money or skipping obligations just to get even, you need to reach out. The National Problem Gambling Helpline is open 24/7 at 1-800-GAMBLER, and there's no shame in asking for help, it's only a strength. So, there's one thing I want you guys to remember from this video is that winning in sports betting isn't about picking teams. It's about winning the emotional war inside your own head. You need to ask yourself, can you stick to your plan when it's going bad? Can you stay humble when it's going great? Can you accept losses without falling apart? Can you walk away when it's no longer healthy? If you can do those things, that's what's going to separate you from the crowd. It's not a lock, it's not a parlay, it's not a gut feeling, but process, patience, and professionalism. That's what's going to do it for you. You got everything you need to do right away. Now it's going to be up to you. If this chapter gave you value, like the video. If it hit home, drop a comment and let us know what your biggest challenge is. And if you're serious about getting sharper here at Grandstand Sports Data, please subscribe to the channel. We'll keep giving you the content that actually helps and not just the hype. So until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your bankroll, and we'll see you in the next one.